Hello and welcome to my yellow day, my yellow 920, you see. I could have filmed this with my yellow 920, but I'm not. I'm filming it with a Canon 600. So I'm yellow jumper. Whatever happened to rock and roll and things? Now look, I mean look. I look like a freaking businessman or something, but maybe not with this. Yeah. But anyway, yellow, and of course yellow. And yes, this yellow is very much in honour of this yellow beastie here, the incredibly rare and rather wonderful Original Syn. It's a 3-oscillator analogue synth made by Dr. Hitchens of a company called DsTEC, and it was made in the late 90s, beginning of 2000, somewhere around about the millennium, for a very short period of time. And very few were made. I was very fortunate to buy one of the models straight from him. I was working for EMU Systems at the time, and he wanted us to distribute it, and we gave it some serious thought, but it was just at the time when the market was changing, unfortunately. But I managed to land one. I bought it from him, and it's what's different about it, or what was different then and still, is that it is a true analog synth, analog everything, but it uses digital control to record all of its bits and to keep everything in tune. So everything is tuned, all the oscillators, the filters, everything is tuned 256 times a second. And what that means is it's incredibly stable. So once you start setting up whatever effects, whatever patches you wish, when you recall it, if you switch it on, it will start playing immediately exactly as you saved it. So it has everything that you want from an analog synth without the instability. So once you get it programmed, you can just go. It's fantastic. The other thing that's really notable about it is that it has an incredibly comprehensive MIDI spec. So it responds to MIDI control commands on just about every front. So it makes it very powerful when using it with a sequencer, or indeed doing live gigging. I think there's only been one real proper review of this, and that was carried out by someone by SOS magazine many years ago when this was released. And one of the failings, it said, was that it didn't have LFOs assignable to things like the envelope, the volume envelope, VCA or the VCF, or well, certainly the VCA, not the VCA. You can do it with the VCA. But the thing is, you can get to all of that from MIDI, and also everything that's in it is clockable to MIDI. So all of the LFOs, everything else, are clockable to MIDI. So it was quite ahead of its time at the time, and it makes it quite powerful. And it was a shame; it was completely unregarded. And it's just one of those beasts that's just got a sound, man. It's just... So rather than blabbing on about it, I think probably the best thing to do is to give you a quick spin round it, as it were. So this is the Syn. I'm just going to go into edit mode here, I hope. And let's just see what we've got. So across the front here of the Original Syn, what we have is 4 buttons at the side, and as you can see, a number of buttons down at the bottom, probably equating to 11, he said, counting very quickly. And then this gives you a grid matrix, so if I want to select a particular function, I can just simply choose between these things and it zeroes in on it. Okay. More about that in a minute. The other buttons that are here are, you have a system button, which allows you to get into system controls or system settings, program, which switches you into program mode so you can switch between different programs, and edit, which allows you to edit the program. Then of course we have the eponymous write, to write things, an up and down, which allows you to data entry one note at a time, or one increment at a time, and a data entry wheel. Now this is fixed, it's not continuously rotating, which some find kind of odd, but I actually quite like it. Now that I'm using it again, I actually quite like the fact that where it is where it is. It's really solid. So coming back to over here, what we have is various sections. So we have, as I said at the beginning, 3 oscillators. 1, 2, 3 oscillators, and then filter, VCF, and here we have portmanteau, And then up here we have keyboard, velocity sensing or otherwise. Envelope 1, which is generally speaking I think attached directly to the VCF. Envelope 2 to the VCA. Arpeggiator, and this is quite a neat one on this, they've done some really quite interesting things. And then master tuning and volume. And then over here, right on the very, very left, we have LFO, master LFO. And curiously, there's also a separate LFO used for the oscillators, but I'll come to that in a minute. I'll show you how that works, which is quite weird and wonderful. So let's start off first by giving you a quick, sort of run around the sounds, as it were. So if we go into program mode, and we'll just sort of gradually start picking some. Oh yeah, it has noise. Yes, wasn't that worth it? Wasn't it all worth it just for that one? Oh, that sounds dreadful. Now the bass end on this, I use it as a bass synth so often. It's lovely. So what I'm going to do now is take you through the individual parameters really quickly. So we have, for instance, at the moment what we're hearing, if we go into edit mode, is just the filter. As you can see from, if I press this button, doing this thing, you'll see on oscillator 1, 0 level, oscillator 2, 0, oscillator 3, 0. So what you're hearing here is nothing more than the resonance of the filter going into self-resonance. So I'm going to take that down and I'm going to bring the filter up, open it up full, or there-ish. And then I'm going to bring in one of the oscillators. So if we start with this one, just oscillator 1, a single oscillator will increase the level. And we're now going to look at the shapes of the oscillator. So we've got oscillator 1, that's a sawtooth. And what I'm going to do is start flicking through the different waveforms. So we've got sawtooth, pulse of course. Everything's from square right the way through to a really thin pulse, and each of these is a slightly different pulse width. But you'll notice they're not moving. However, this has what's really kind of cute and lovely about the original Syn is it has a second series of pulse width waveforms that when you dial them in, so we go to C now, this is 1, it has an associated LFO with presets. There's 16 different preset speeds for it, but essentially it's doing pulse width modulation, and these are just fixed. So if you have a listen, that's rather thicker than that. And if I dial through these, the modulation gets slightly faster or thicker. So it's already quite thick. That's just one oscillator. If we bring 2 up, so I'm just going to leave it on a standard waveform there. Bring up the second. Bring up the second oscillator, which is fine-tuned. So that's 2 of them. 2 oscillators, absolutely locked. Nothing very special about that. And then what we're going to do is just use the fine tuning. So I'm going to move the fine tuning on the second oscillator up by 2, fine tuning on the first oscillator down by 2. That's kind of nice. But now I'm going to go to the weirding waveforms, the chorus waveforms on oscillator 1. And I'll do the same with oscillator 2. Now that's kind of lovely. And now what I'm going to do is introduce oscillator 3 as a sub-octave. Really is huge. That's without doing anything else. It's very fun. So if we go to, let's just go to the filter. So we're just going to play around with the filter now. So whilst we're here, in fact, I'm just going to lose that particular. So I'm going to lose that. So here we go. And I'm just going to come to the filter now, so 24 dB per octave filter. Resonance, as you've seen previously, it goes into self-resonance, so and then we're going to start adding some of this stuff. So we're going to put envelope 1 onto this. Do a positive envelope. So I've got the attack. I'm going to drop the attack down, the decay down. So we can get really quite extreme with that, you know, let's just give it a bit more. We can start adding things like LFO to the filter. Here is the LFO. And we've got various different waveforms. We have sync, and the sync here will sync either to MIDI or internally to itself. So here it's syncing to itself. You can get the rate. Etc. So you can get all sorts of weirdness, as you can see. So it does all that normal stuff. And if we just get rid of the resonance, I always select the right thing. Okay, so the other thing which we have here, which is kind of cool, so I'm just going to get at this. We can now cross-modulate across two different oscillators as well, so this is kind of interesting. That's just cross-modding on 1. If we go to cross-modding on 2, So there's a huge amount you can do, and the other thing of course which you can do with this is, I believe, we've got all of the noises as well. In fact, there's stuff on here that simply I can't remember because it's been so long since I've used it. So I'm going to turn down these other two and just have a listen to this one and get rid of all that cross sync. And just take it up, thank you very much, to a reasonable doofer. Right, so that's noise, white noise, sawtooth, white noise, and that's external. So what I'm going to do is go into program. I'm just going to dump down a bit and see if I can find some lovely little arpeggiators. I just love the sound of this. I'm supposed to be showing you arpeggiators, but I always forget. Oh. Well, that's an arpeggiator. So if we just go to the arp, why? That's better. Right. So now we're going through the different arpeggios. So that's played. So lots of different variations, as you can hear. Up and down, down, up, down. And then it gets into some weird stuff. all of this is syncable to MIDI as well, which is just, I mean, I don't think that, I mean, it doesn't sound like terribly lots, but what's really weird about this thing is just how huge the sound is. It's just barking. There's a track right there. Oh, you can set the keyboard up as well, so that, as you can see, this is the other thing, of course, you can of course set different keyboard tracking modes. So here, no re-triggering. Honest, I'm not sure. Last note, no re-trigger. And last note. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a mad piece of kit. And so, really, I mean, the most fun though is to be had with just starting from scratch and building your own. You're just sort of, which is what analog synthesis is all about. It's how you get those sounds and you find these weird. I suppose what's really good about this is the presets give you an indication of just how mad you can get with it. And bearing in mind there are no effects on board at all. I mean, this is just a synth, no effects, nothing else. It's a mono out. Mono, it's a mono synth with a mono output, 3 oscillators, and it's completely barking, and I love it. I absolutely love this machine to pieces. What's not to love? About such a ridiculous Ladies and gentlemen, the DsTEC Original Syn. Oh.